Tuned up at the same time. Well. Good morning, and welcome to Postcards. I'm Jenny Van West coming to you live from the Postcard studio, where it's always 70 and sunny. And today is no different. I can see my favorite pine tree. The birds have been at the feeder. It's been quite unseasonably warm today. We had very, very cold weather for the last 7 to 10 days. And we had a little warm front come through, and guess what I heard today? Which is a sure sign that spring will eventually come, and that is the calling of a male cardinal to his ladybird and all the other ladybirds. So, without further ado, we have a wonderful show lined up for you today. I want to get going here. EUGENE Ruffolo's in the house from New York City. Cannot wait to hang out with him. He has got the voice of an angel and incredible songwriter and a lovely human to boot. So anyway, let's get started, shall we? I think I'm in the key of A today. When you're down and you're blue and you don't know what to do, just write a postcard. When you're feeling fine and there's something on your mind, just write a postcard. Don't you know Grandma loves this show? She listens every time. You don't need a reason, you don't need a rhyme to write a postcard to P.O. Box 1252. Just write a postcard. 04098. Just write a postcard to Westbrook, Maine, 'cause Grandma loves this show. Well. Welcome to Postcards, everybody. I'm your host, Jenny Van West. I think I already covered that part. And I'm super excited to be here with y'all today, Thursday. Wait, where's our... Hold on a second. Hold the phone. We got a ticker here somewhere. Here we go. Thursday, February 17th. And I've got a mug of coffee here. I've got my orchid named Dolly hanging out here in the Postcard studio with me, and we've got a really wonderful guest that's coming up. EUGENE Ruffolo's with us from New York City. We'll be talking to him in a couple of minutes, getting some songs, hearing about what he's been up to, and super stoked about that. In the meantime, I got a couple things to tell you about. You can write to us. Postcards, care of Jenny Van West Music, P.O. Box 1252, Westbrook, Maine, 04098. And we will read it on the air on Mondays, we meaning me. I have a postcard right here from my 11th grade English teacher over in Vermont that I'm going to read on Monday. And I would love to read a postcard from you. So just drop it in the mail. We have a topic every week. This week the topic is what love. Let's see, what is the topic this week? Ain't Love Grand. Ain't Love Grand. That's the first one was what love is. Second one, Ain't Love Grand. That's the post Valentine's Day where you can just let it out. Ain't Love Grand, truly or sarcastically, however you want to say it. Put it on a postcard. Write to me, P.O. Box 1252, Westbrook, Maine, 04098. And you're just down in the green room with Greta, and pretty soon I'm going to be bringing him in. As soon as I can see his sweet face down there, I'm going to bring him in. A couple other things to tell you about, though. While we're waiting. March 18th, 19th, Grateful to Get Back Festival, Peace House Farm in Austin, Texas. This is an amazing event. It's going to be it's being produced by Tex Chromosome in Austin and Magnolia Roads in Las Vegas. This is going to be a tremendously fun reunion of a whole mess of people. Grateful to get back down at Peace House Farm in Austin. Part of the very large fringe festival of South by Southwest, and deeply integrated with it as well. I'm going to be broadcasting from Austin all week. I'm going to be going down there on the 12th and coming back on the 20th. And so everything that happens is going to be back-to-back, wall-to-wall postcards for me. And also some performances. Looking forward to that tremendously. So get yourself a cheap plane ticket while you can. Come on down to Austin. And the 19th is my birthday. So without further ado, I'm thinking that there's somebody in the green room that I would like to bring in, and that's EUGENE Ruffolo. You ready, Huge? Here you come. Da-da-da-da-da. Welcome to Postcards.
Thanks, Jenny.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
I think the last time, besides just the last 5 minutes that we had a conversation prior to all of this, was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago here in Maine, when you came up with Shane.
It's been a long time.
And was that the house concert where there was fire breathing? Does that ring a bell?
Maybe. I think so, actually.
I'm trying to remember. There was one time when Shane was there, and I couldn't remember it was the time you came up from New York with him or not. But I fell in love with your voice back then. I'm still in love with that voice, and so psyched that you're here today.
Me too.
So where should we start? How about what's up right now? Maybe we should start there. What's going on in your world? And I know you've got a new album in the hopper, and maybe we could touch on that right out of the gate. What's going on with your new album?
Yeah, well, it's sort of a strange situation because when the pandemic hit in March 20, right? Where am I? It's a big confusion. When the pandemic hit, I was just about to release a record and go on tour. I was literally one overdub away from finishing my record, so it was really, really close. And then everything stopped. So I sort of put it on the back burner and got involved in other things like trying to stay alive and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I have this record ready, but it's just a question of it's felt like such a strange time to release something, you know. Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's the perfect time. I don't know, but it's just been such an odd, few years that I just had this record and it just went into freeze mode, and then I just am kind of waiting for the proper moment to release it. So I'm actually working on a few videos right now, since video is just a critical aspect of everything. Yeah. Trying to come up with a plan. Yeah. To release it into the world.
Yeah, no kidding. And I hear what you're talking about, being a strange time. And one question that I have, because I was getting ready to, I was kind of in this pre-production mode with Shane at the time, and was going out in May to record another record, and I had plans as well, as did a lot of us. So one question I have for you about that record, that new record, is, have you gone through some processes in your own mind about, is this record even relevant anymore? Has that question come up to you?
Yes.
Or like?
I mean, yes. I think it's relevant in terms of the tone of it and what it's about. Yeah. But it's strange to have something sit that long, and then all of a sudden you're like, I can't. I'm trying. Actually, that's one of the things I'm trying to do is reacquaint myself with it. Get back into the groove, because I feel like I'm sort of disconnected from it a little bit. Yeah. 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 Which is not necessarily an unusual thing, because by the time a record comes out, for me at least, I'm usually so sick of the stuff I've done. Some people are like endlessly fascinated with themselves, but I tend to be really heading towards the next thing all the time. So by the time a record comes out, I'm like, I can't believe I have to sing these songs. Yeah.
Who is this guy who wrote all these songs?
Right. Who is this guy and why did he do this? Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, you have got a guitar there, I know for a fact, and I was wondering if maybe you might consider playing something.
Sure.
Just jump right into a song. If you're just joining us, we were speaking with the very wonderful EUGENE Ruffolo, having a nice little micro inboxes kind of reunion with you after not really having spoken to you since you were up here in Maine.
I know.
So this is just a great little opportunity to check in with you. So what you got under your fingers there this morning?
Well, that's a good question. I was going to sing you an Italian song, but we haven't really gotten there yet. So maybe I should go back to something from my new record.
Sure, that sounds great.
Yeah, this is a sort of a open-ended song that's has a little bit of a story behind it, but maybe I'll just. It's a song that I actually wrote, interestingly, for somebody had called me years ago to write a song for an iPhone app, like a commercial. Yeah, I'll just tell you the story of this song. They wrote me they called me up and asked me to write, because I do a lot of that type of work. I do a lot of session work and work in advertising. I have over the years. So they called me to write this song for an iPhone app. And the idea was it was going to be an app for pregnant women. And this is a technology, this was years ago, that now is not that unusual, but at the time it seemed really very novel to me. The way it worked was that you're pregnant, you take a picture of yourself every day for 9 months. And then at the end of the 9 months, you have this app, and it sort of time compresses your pregnancy into like a 30-second film or something like that, right? So they asked me to write a song that sounded like a song. They wanted it to be a song, and they gave me some vague direction, like, you're waiting for something, you're anticipating it, time is passing, you're a pregnant woman, right? That's what's supposed to evoke these ideas. So I wrote this little tune, time keeps on moving on, time keeps on moving on, bringing me closer and closer to you. And, what is this thing called love, sending me gifts from above? And that's what I came up with this little 60-second song, and I wrote it, and nothing really came of it. But I had it sitting around for years, and I would run into it on my, I'd come across it on my computer and think, I should flesh that song out because it's got something about it that I like, and I never did it. And then when I wrote this when I started working on this album, which is called 10 Good Sermons, and it's 10 sermon-like songs. They have sort of a spiritual overtone, these tunes. I came back to the song and decided to kind of expound on it. So I wrote a bridge, and
the song was pregnant with itself.
Exactly. It was just a very long gestation period. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
So it's called Closer to You. Time keeps moving on. Time keeps on moving on, bringing me closer and closer to you. Closer to you, bringing me closer and closer. What is this thing called love? Sending me gifts from above, bringing me closer and closer to you. Closer to you, bringing me closer and closer. I never said that I'm a believer, nor somebody shown me a sign. But all of my history, the changes, the mystery, bring me closer and closer I find. Time keeps on moving on. Time keeps on moving on, bringing me closer and closer to you. Closer to you, bringing me closer and closer. Closer to you. Closer to you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh my goodness, that was absolutely gorgeous.
Thanks.
I'm hoping that I'm hoping that the echo is not too bad over there. We're trying to control the echo here on Postcards. Welcome to Postcards. If you're just joining us, we are listening to the amazing EUGENE Ruffolo right here in the Postcard studio, Annex, New York City. Wow. So, this is a very emotional song for me because I have been through that process twice myself, and my kids are grown. So thank you for bringing some of those eternal moments back to me. They are absolutely placed outside of time of expecting, especially the first one, to come along. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So this is off of your new album, and you said the title is 10 Good Sermons.
10 Good Sermons.
And tell me a little bit about, somebody might look at that and be like, oh, a concept album. But is that what you think of that as? Or is that like, oh, wait, I've got 10 songs here and they're all good sermons. So then it's going to be called 10 Good Sermons. How did the album come about?
I'm reluctant to say now because you made it sound like it's a bad thing being a concept.
No, I've never. No.
It is. No, okay.
Did I say something wrong?
No, you didn't say anything wrong. It is a little bit of a concept record, as was my last record. And I'm finding that as I get older, and I think this is not an unusual thing for artists, I'm tending to get a little bit, starting to think a little more outward as opposed to inward. My earlier records were very self-indulgent, as a lot of singer-songwriters can be,
Yes.
There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I mean, it makes great music. Yeah. But I'm starting to, it's a combination of maturing, let's put it that way, and also just getting bored with, doing the same thing over and over again. So trying to come up with different ideas. I'd always had the idea for years, I've had the idea of writing, of releasing a record, writing a whole record that had no love songs on it. Just as an exercise, as like a creative exercise. I'm always writing love songs, So this record has no love songs on it, which is a feat in and of itself for me. Has one, actually, the last tune on the record, but it's sort of tangentially a love song. That's not really the focus of it. It happens to be in a love setting, romantic setting, but has other theme to it. So, the way the record came about, really, I have this gig that I do. I've been doing for a few years. It's at a Unitarian. It's an interesting gig. It's at a Unitarian church, and it's a thing called Soulful Sundown. And there's a minister who does this. It's every month, second Friday of every month. Minister does this service, and when we have a band that's on stage with her, and she creates a sermon. And she comes up with a couple songs that she wants us to sing that are gonna illustrate the themes that she's speaking about, right? And so her sermon is punctuated by music and by us singing these songs. So it's interesting. And during the pandemic, it's turned into a virtual thing. We do it. We record. We do these videos. I don't know if you've seen them. They're on Facebook.
Not yet. No, I'm gonna go check.
Oh yeah, you have to check it out. We're called Cosmic Orchestra, and so one of us starts a song and then we send it around to each other and we do this, we create a recording and then we do a video and we post it. But anyway, I kept having this experience. I was doing this gig for a few years, and I'd be standing on stage waiting to sing a song, and the minister would be doing this sermon, and I would constantly find myself like getting a pen and trying to write, going like, that's a good idea for a song. That's a good idea for a song, And I realized that like, a sermon is very similar to a song, because the process of writing a sermon or delivering a really good sermon is very much like being a songwriter. You have to come up with an interesting idea that's universal and has some kind of universal appeal, and then hopefully express it in a unique way, which is basically what songwriting is about, right? You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You want to come up with something that has universal appeal that people can relate to. But you have to say it in an interesting way. It can't just be like, love is great. It has to be expressed in an interesting, creative way. So I decided that I was going to write 10 little sermons. That was my project. So that's what I did. I wrote these 10 songs that are like 10 little sermons. Although they sound basic like all the rest of my other music, to tell you the truth. But that's the concept in my head, at least.
Yeah, yeah. So that's so interesting to me because I grew up. Did you grow up you grew up going to church? I'm assuming.
I did. Yes.
Yeah, and as did I. And I went to an Episcopal school for 6 years, and that was a part of my wheelhouse. And anyway, long story short, when I hear the word sermon, I don't have any bad association. Some people are just like, oh God, a sermon. But like the idea of a sermon in my own mind, and I'm curious about what you think about this, is that there's a little more forcefulness to that name, right, than a song. Like in the sense of when somebody's at the pulpit and they deliver a sermon, it kind of goes out there to a whole bunch of people, and there's no immediate response. Like it's like, okay, putting this out there,
Right.
and there's just a little more space than saying, I'm going to get up here and sing a song. I'm going to deliver a sermon. Everybody's like, okay, let's see what you got. Let's see what you got, and we're going to just like take it in and be like, there's a forcefulness to that. So anyway, I'm just I don't know if that's a question, a comment, or whatever.
Well, yeah,
Postcards, so that's how it is.
Well, that's interesting because you're saying you have no particular association, bad or good, with the sermon. I actually, not to get too deep into this,
No,
but
that's okay. We can go.
I was,
You want to-
I was raised Catholic,
Yep.
and went to Catholic school, which I absolutely hated, and found to be a very traumatic experience. And I don't say that in like, the 2022 use of the word traumatic, where everybody's traumatized. I really found it to be a traumatizing experience.
I hear you.
It was a very, again, I don't want to get into a whole thing about the Catholic Church, but
Some other time. We'll have coffee in New York.
yeah, some of the time. The point is, it's in a way, it's ironic that I would do this record, because I'm a little bit anti-religion, anti-organized religion.
Right.
So my association, I do have associations with sermons that are
Yeah.
not that the Catholics deliver sermons per se, really, but
Maybe a homily.
this gig that I have, it turned out, it's sort of ironic that I would end up in a situation like that, because I'm just so anti-Catholic Church. But I found so it was a little bit cathartic for me, or healing in some way, because I found myself, almost forced to be standing there listening to a sermon, which normally I wouldn't find myself doing.
Yeah.
And I was moved by the power of it, because, you know what I mean? I started looking at it in a different way.
Yeah.
Decided to explore it. So it's sort of ironic that I would write a record like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this could be very 2022 also, but I think a lot of people use the word, what do we call it when we take a word and we take it back? What is that? Anyway, my brain's not working. This is Postcards. Welcome to Postcards. My brain explodes after 20 minutes every time.
You mean etymology? Are you saying?
No, I mean when you what's that? What do you call it when you repossess a symbol or a word and bring it back on your side and decide what it means? Like you had to listen to a lot of it, and these are 10 good sermons. These are 10. Not just 10 sermons. These are 10 good sermons. I like that. I love that title. So anyway, we'll talk more about this over coffee in New York.
No, but I just want to say one thing. It's interesting that you say that, because when I was thinking of the title, I ran it by a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, but you got to get rid of the good. 10 sermons. It should be 10 sermons. I don't like." And I was like, "No, the good's the best part." I'm like happy that you said that, because it was an interesting moment, because he was saying, "No, you got to get rid of the good. It should be 10 sermons." It's very direct. I was like,
Yeah.
"Nope, good is the best part of the phrase to me."
It is. It is. I agree. And I think also that, because it's also not, you're not saying like 10 fantastic sermons, or you're not saying 10 mind-blowing, life-changing sermons. No, 10
Or didn't I write
sermons.
10 great sermons? It's not like.
Yeah. Right. It's 10 good sermons. So anyway, there's a lot for me to think about there. I really love where this is going, and I'm really looking forward to the album. So if you're just joining us, this is Postcards. We're talking with EUGENE Ruffolo from New York City, coming to you live from the Postcard Studio in Portland, Maine. That's about 5.5 hours by bus. And we've been touching on new album, new work. You also put out an album entirely in Italian a few years back. That's absolutely gorgeous, and maybe we could touch on that.
Thanks. Yeah.
If you'd like to.
Yes, I love to talk about my Italian record, because it's a project that is very close to my heart. And you know, as with everything else, don't feel like it's gotten exactly the attention it deserves. So it's nice to discuss it. So thank you for asking. Yeah, I am of Italian descent, as you may have guessed, and I just always have loved Italian music. I love it. You know how people talk about how people often say it's sort of a cliche, like, well, you know, the Italian language is so musical, you know, but it actually is, you know, and it's really beautiful to sing if you're a singer, just because of the sound of it and the way it flows. You know, it's really fun. It's really nice to sing it. And I've spent a lot of time in Italy, and yeah, I especially went there a lot when I was in my 20s. And I have a ton of friends there. I spent a lot of time there, and I sort of learned, one of the ways I learned how to speak Italian was through songs. You know, I would go there and I would take songs, because I'm a musician, so I was interested in the songs, of course, and I would like study the lyrics and try to figure out what they meant. And, you know, and it was an interesting way to learn the language, because you're learning, you know, from poets, really, right? So you're reading something that's you're not only learning the language, but there's a poetic element to the song. So you're coming across these interesting idioms and ways of expressing things. And so it was a really interesting way to learn the language. And I always had this desire to do a record of Italian music. You know, I'd done a few things. I'd done a few records, a few lullaby records. People had asked me, I have this world music company had asked me to do these Italian lullabies. I did a few records of Italian lullabies, but I'd never recorded like a whole record, and I always wanted to do that. So I jumped into it. It was a long, interesting process, because I had to sort of step out of my comfort zone, and I wanted to use different type of musicians than I usually use. And, you know, I wanted to sort of explore, Italian music has a sort of world music element to it, because there's a lot of influences in Italian culture. So
Yeah.
there's African influences and Spanish influences, and I wanted to kind of capture all that, you know.
Wow.
So I hired really interesting, awesome musicians that I don't normally work with. You know, like Bagiti Kamalo, who's a bass player from Paul Simon Graceland record. Like, he played on the record, so there's sort of an African element to it, which is really cool. And I actually found this amazing guitar player in Italy, and I flew to Italy and recorded him. So there's just a lot of cool stuff that happened musically on the record.
Right. So you availed yourself of the opportunity to connect with artists that you know, you and other people might not have initially thought of, to
Right.
create a cultural reflection of. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's a very interesting process. And yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But clearly you did it right.
Thanks.
And I would love to hear a song from that album if you're willing to share with us.
Sure. So one of the things I did on this record that was particularly challenging and gratifying is I tried to write a few songs, because most of the songs, you know, the record is a mixture of songs. It's like I did some Neapolitan songs, which tend to be like what people think of as the classic Italian folk songs, the most enduring Italian folk songs. And that was really interesting, because I again, I know we can't get too deep into any one topic, but Naples has a particular dialect. It's not, you know, all over Italy, they speak different dialects. It's not just one straight language. And I studied the Neapolitan dialect, which I've always loved. I got a teacher and I studied it, you know, to do these Neapolitan songs. So that was cool.
Man,
And then I did some Italian contemporary pop songs, and then I wrote a few songs. So it's a mixture of things. And I'm going to play you a song that I wrote. It's called Bella Maria.
Eugene Ruffolo here on Postcards.
Tu con quegli occhi che mi fanno morire così. Non posso dirti quello che sento, perché basta che vengo vicino e tu te ne vai. Maria, quante bugie che devo sentire da te. Stammi vicino, ti prego resti con me. Come passare una vita intera così. Maria, bella Maria, bella Maria, bella Maria, dove sei? Bella Maria, bella Maria, bella Maria, dove sei? Starci nella camera insieme, ma io non ti trovo. Dirti quello che provo, ma io non ti muovo. Non ce lo faccio bastare una vita così. Maria, bella Maria, bella Maria, bella Maria, dove sei? Bella Maria, bella Maria, bella Maria, dove sei? Bella Maria, dove sei? Bella Maria, dove sei? Tu con quegli occhi che mi fanno morire così.
Oh yeah, Eugene Ruffolo. Oh my goodness, Eugene! Wow. I just have to say, if you're just joining us, this is Postcards. We are having just a huge treat today, listening to Eugene Ruffolo talk about current and past and future work, and listening to that incredible voice and guitar playing and songwriting and Italian. I don't even know what you're saying, and my heart is like, it's like they talk about, it's like the non-cognoscenti. We talk about Italian, maybe the cognoscenti too. Italian is the language of love. Or maybe is it French? I don't know, but I'm feeling it. I don't even know what you're saying, and it's all coming through the language and the singing. So, and the songwriting. So thank you so much. I want to just give a shout out to a couple people today. Toby Simmons, Diana Griffin-Ennis, Emily Hansen joining us from all around the place and enjoying. Eugene Ruffolo coming to us live from New York City. So one of the great pleasures of doing this show is I get to kick back and relax and listen to music being played for me live from wherever. And thank you so much for being here this morning. So what, you were saying that you talked a little bit about the process of making this album, and maybe it hasn't quite sort of made its way into all the places it could. What has been the impact for you of making that album?
Of this album?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say something, respond to something you just said about not understanding it, which I found is really interesting, is that even before I recorded this record, I started to because I was in the process in my head of doing things and writing things. I started playing a song once in a while in a show. When I would be doing shows, I would throw an Italian song in there, right? Yeah. And I always thought it was kind of a random thing to do. And I was struck by the fact that invariably I would do a set, I would stick some Italian song in there, and I would finish. And afterwards, people would come up and they go, "What's that Italian song? What's that? Where can I find that Italian song?" And I found that interesting because, as you said, people can't understand what you're saying, And I did a tour, and I did a whole tour with the record too. So where I was doing only the record, and people, I thought this is going to be too inaccessible for people, But it's an interesting illustration of the power of music to transcend. Of course, we're writers, and we want people to understand our lyrics. It's a very important part of the music, of the musical experience, songwriting experience. But music reaches people even if they don't understand what you're saying, because there are obviously other layers to it. And I found that really interesting, how people would, not only were they, because, of course, just being insecure like all artists, I'm thinking, are they going to hate this? This is stupid. And that was the song that I put one song in my set and everybody would talk about that song.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, if I could share something like along those lines, one of the things that I do here in Portland is I produce an international open mic. I've been doing that since 2016 because we have an incredibly international city, small city here, and I don't know. It was a couple of years ago that I heard that statistically, it was a couple blocks in Portland, Maine, were for a little while the most linguistically diverse parts of a city anywhere in the United States, and just because of it's a small community and we've got people from all over. So I started this international open mic, and I've had so many people say to me like, "Well, but I can't write in English," and I'm like, but that's not what this is about. Like, this is about doing whatever you feel like doing. You want to do Hotel California? That's fine. You want to do, you can do whatever you want. And the power of hearing a language that isn't immediately understood, it's like, I don't know if it's probably, I love thinking about the brain and how the brain interacts with music. And like, there's so many parts to that are fascinating to me. And one of them is what you just said of like, is it almost like it's like there's a part of our brain that just gets bypassed and it goes deeper when we don't understand, and also perhaps, I'm thinking about this, it reaches into a place that's so early, before we could really understand the words of the spoken language around us. Music could reach us then too, and it touches this very deep, comforted feeling place. And so anyway, those are my random neurobiology thoughts this morning about that.
Yeah. My niece, who's an artist and a very interesting person, I remember way before I did this record, I had done like a song or two in a set in a show somewhere, and she said to me, because I always remember this, she said, I love when you sing in Italian because I don't get distracted by the words, and I'm focused. I'm listening. I hear your voice in a different way, and it's like people have it. It just changes the experience, I think, of listening to music when you're not focused on one thing or the other.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, and it's like the mind just can't like get all caught up in a heady sort of a place. It's like it allows there to be if it's a head and heart kind of experience listening to music, it's like there's the head kind of calms down and the heart becomes more open. I don't know how else to explain it. And so I think that's so
much for all those thousands of hours I've spent like laboring over my lyrics,
The people who are buying your record are the ones that are like, I don't know what he's saying. or that's all the more reason. Now, curiously, if it's okay, I want to touch on one more thing about that record. What was I don't know how sort of, far back your Italian roots are in the United States, and is that New York and other places, but like, I'm curious about if you had a family response to that album.
Well, it's interesting. My father is no longer with us, and I always think my father would have loved this record. He would have been so happy about it. Because he was very into his Italian. His Italian. My father was born here, but he was very, very connected to Italy, and he would have loved it. So, my sister loves it. So what's the exact question? What's the
Well, I was just curious about if your broader family, I mean, we didn't even mention this as a place we might go, but I was just curious if And if that's a bigger topic, we can talk about it next time you're on Postcards or not. But just like what was did your family have a response to it? And I'm so sorry about your dad. I know that I think he would have, from what you've just told me, he absolutely would have embraced and absolutely.
Yeah, he would have. It's a big regret.
And that's enough. That's what that that sort of a. But did your extended family or family back in Italy?
Well, yeah, of course, well, becomes like, people, it's interesting because I made this record and a lot of people say, oh, people are going to love this in Italy, and I'm always thinking, no, that's not really, I don't see it that way, because I feel like, that's what people's immediate response is. This is going to be incredible for Italy. And I'm like, no, this is not for Italy, because I don't think Italians are not that interested in hearing you sing an Italian song. You know what I mean? It's not that novel to them, right? I think it's a more interesting project for here, personally, Yeah. But I do have a lot of friends and relatives in Italy, and they all loved it. And the thing is, I don't know if you know this, but there's a book. I wrote a book that goes with it. Do you know this?
No, but I want you to talk about this. Actually, I did know that, but I haven't read it. And so maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a 2-part project. So it's a record of Italian music. And then there's a book that evolved. It started out that I wanted to just write a book about, I really wanted to just write a cookbook. I'm really into cooking and food. And I wanted to create a book where I documented my family's recipes. I grew up with 4 grandparents that were very important in my life. And one in particular, my grandmother on my father's side was an unbelievable cook, and she informed a lot of my own cooking and my interest in food, And so I wanted to write those recipes down, and my mother's recipes. And so I thought it would be interesting to do a cookbook, even though it sounds like a little tacky doing an Italian record with a cookbook, but I wanted to do, I wanted to preserve these recipes. So I started out as a cookbook, companion piece to the record, and it sort of evolved into this other thing. Because first of all, I've always been really interested in the kind of through line that moves among and between and through all the creative disciplines. I think that like all the arts are connected, whether you're an actor or a painter or a songwriter, there's a through line that goes through the creative experience, and I feel that about cooking. When I'm cooking, I get into a mental space that's very similar to that which I go through when I'm writing a song. It's just a sort of immersion. It's hard to explain. It's a feeling,
No, but what's so interesting? Can I just interject one thing?
Sure.
Which is that there's one of my co-teachers for a free community guitar class I'm teaching. He's been using cooking metaphors to help people sort of like who have never ever studied an instrument to sort of conceptualize what that is.
Right.
And it's like immediate. People get it. It's immediate. It's a big mental shift. So I really appreciate. So carry on. I just really wanted to interject that. It's a good one. Yeah,
there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So I started writing this essay about that, about the how music and cooking intersect as art forms, and then I started thinking, well, this is interesting, this essay, I decided I was going to write a series of essays. So I wrote this book has 14 recipes, and it has 14 essays that vary in topics. They're everything from cooking, from cooking techniques to discussions of ingredients, to philosophical discussions about the connection between food and music. And then there's some music ones. There's things on language, on the Italian language. It's just a series of essays. So the book has 14 recipes. It has 14 different essays. It's half of the book is food, and then half of the book is music. It's divided in 2. So the music part is sort of like an extended liner note of the record. It has all the songs, credits of the songs, photographs from the recording sessions, stories about songs, discussions of why I chose each song. It's just it became like this book about Italian culture and food and music, and it's I think it's quite interesting as a book.
Well, I'm just going to say that it's so neat to hear you talk about that, and I also love that that you have production, like album production photos, like in the studio, in the cookbook.
Yeah.
Because this could be this is a longer conversation that I want to have with you, which is that how production intersects with creating of music, and also the producing of food and how that intersects with culture and people and timelessness, this timelessness that we can reach in a good song by being present when we're performing, by being present in the kitchen, and the way that we can, and language, and the way all of these things work together to preserve culture, to transmit culture, to impact others who may not be part of that culture. So this is I'm like, my husband's an incredible cook, and I'm going to be like, all right, I'm the marinara sauce person, which is really. Do you have a marinara sauce recipe in your book?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good.
It's the cornerstone of the book.
I'm going to scrap everything I learned from my non-Italian family. I'm a pretty good. I've got some tips from Jeff's mother, who grew up in the Lower East Side, and it was part of the mix as a second generation Jewish young woman absorbing culture from around her in New York. Anyway, longer conversation. If you're just joining us, this is Postcards. My brain's exploding talking to EUGENE Ruffolo about his Italian record and book. And if you want to learn more about Euge, please do. Treat yourself. Go follow you everywhere, all the places, all the social. And go over here to eugeneruffolo.com. And make sure you don't spell it. Make sure you spell it right. You got to get that O in there. Okay?
Got to get the O in
extra
there.
O in there. Yeah, it's very Italian. What do you say? You ready for another song? Want to play us another one?
Sure. Switch guitars here.
So while you're just switching guitars, I just want to say a couple things. Good morning, everybody. And if you're just joining us, this is Postcards. You can write to us, P.O. Box 1252, Westbrook, Maine, 04098. I read the mail on Mondays. We have a postcard hanging in the new mail section. And I'd love to hear from you. P.O. Box 1252, Westbrook, Maine, 04098. We have a good time reading the mail on Mondays. And
But I just have to say that everything you just said is exactly what my book is about. So you're going to find. I'm going to send you a copy. I think you will find it interesting.
Okay, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. We haven't gotten a new cookbook in a while, usually. So, and we have a couple that are we've got a couple on the shelf, about 6 or 7 cookbooks from various places that are like kind of our Bibles in the kitchen.
It's not a cookbook per se. That's the thing.
What's that?
It's not a cookbook per se. It started out as one, and it evolved. As a matter of fact, I almost got it published by Random House, which was a sad story because they really loved it. And one of the reasons that they passed on it, which of course is exactly what ironically is exactly what I think makes it good, is that they were saying it's too multifaceted. It's a memoir, it's a cookbook. We're not sure what it is. How do we market it?
We can't market it.
Right. The old story, right?
Yeah. I used to work in publishing. I remember that sort of stuff. So tell us where we're going now.
What was the question?
I said, tell us where we're going now.
Yeah, this is a song from my new record. It has nothing to do with food. It's called Your Smallest Act. It's actually, I read this in the 90s. Written by Bill Clinton. Remember that guy?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. It was a book called Giving. It was a book about how you can change the world through your generosity. And the premise of the book basically was, I'm not sure why I read it, but it was all about how you can make an effective change in the world without doing anything too grandiose, just small acts of kindness and generosity. So that's what this song is about. It's called Your Smallest Act. So it's all about love. It's what the poet said. Get on up, get on out. Stop living inside your head. You don't have to change the world just to make it count. Every little boy, every little girl, watch every little word that comes out of your mouth. Oh, did you ever think about it? Take a long, hard look around. My brother, it's a stone cold fact. In the end, my friend, it all comes down, down, down to your smallest act. Jesus was a sailor, and he sailed the 7 seas, spinning all kinds of miracles on the wild and windy Galilee. Yeah, but then there was that day in a sunny square when he touched that broken baby on the back. Comfort and joy to the little boy, and all of that with the smallest act. Once you set that thing in motion, it's like a wheel upon a track. It's like a wave out on the ocean that ain't never coming back. No, there ain't no way of knowing what your smallest act can do. Just let it flow from the deepest party. Tell me what can be said. Tell me what can be done. Don't you know every little thing that you do so much better than none? 'Cause it doesn't take a village, make a big old booming sound. Might not look like some sacred godly artifact. In the end, my friend, it all comes down, down, down to your smallest act. Your smallest act. Every little thing that you do, every little thing that you do, every little thing that you
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. It's just got all the feels from that one. Just joining us, we're having a great time hanging out with EUGENE Ruffolo, live from New York City. Incredible singer-songwriter, foodie, cultural integrator, understander, sermon writer.
All of those things, clearly, you know.
All of those things. Wow. So now do you, I know that there's just so much uncertainty, and you were talking about earlier in the show about sort of timing on things and trying to figure out how, when, where, and in what regard to release this new album. And I'm wondering if you have any clarity around that, or are we talking 2022? Do you have some dates, or what's your plan there? Do you know yet?
Procrastination is my strong suit.
All right.
But
I knew I'd like something about you.
I think, as I said, I'm trying to work on some videos, and I'm thinking of. I know this. I don't like to articulate this because it makes me nervous about thinking of 2023. But I'm thinking of the idea, because I've never done this, released a record in terms of with singles, but I'm thinking of doing that. I'm thinking of maybe starting in the late spring doing like a single every month with a video.
Oh,
I do
nice.
5, 6 singles towards the end of the year, and then release the whole record as one, like at the beginning of the following year.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that idea. I love that idea. It sounds like, yeah. Well, and it's interesting too because I would say that you're the first, actually one of the first people I've talked to who doesn't have this like overwhelming, another singer-songwriter composer type who's releasing albums who doesn't have this overwhelming sense of like, I got to get out there immediately and get this record out. So I appreciate it personally, just so you know, for what it's worth, because I also have had that same inclination of like, I need to do this in a way, for my own self. I need to do this in a way that's going to feel right, and it's not going to necessarily look like what the next person's doing. And that's something. That's a lesson maybe I should have learned a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it's I appreciate that very much, and thanks for sharing that. So. If you're just joining us, this is Postcards. We've been hanging out with EUGENE Ruffolo here and having an absolutely fabulous time. I can't thank you enough for making the time to do this, Euge. I'm so glad to get a chance to talk with you and hear some incredible songs. Even with a simple mic setup, this is like, we could put like this is the old term, you could put a gunny sack on that voice and it's still going to sound good. You have an ability to touch people that is really special, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us today on Postcards. And
I'm a little jealous that you have a mic and I don't, I have to say, but.
Well, we can talk about that. The funny part about what I'm doing right now is during the pandemic, I had an opportunity to learn how to do all this stuff. I've never produced sound before to this degree, but it's in a very specific, narrow way, and in a box. So. I love talking shop about that stuff. So if you ever want to figure out how to do a live stream to more effect, or just call me up and we'll get you on the show again. How about that? So, well, listen, it's that time. It's time to sing the postcard song. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in this morning. One more person I want to say hello to is Kathy Marshall. Thanks for being here, Kathy. And Toby, Diana, Emily, and all the other folks who are tuning in now from around the place and later. We love you. I want to say a quick shout out to my father-in-law, Jim Van West, who almost always listens to the show, my brother-in-law, Peter Van West, my dad, Jack Pettit, and my Aunt Marjorie James down in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thanks for tuning in later. Oh, and guess who's in the house? It's Shane Alexander. Hi, Shane. Hope your ears were burning because we were saying nice things about you somewhere along the way. So you absolutely do not have to join me in this, but it's a tradition that during this pandemic and doing all these online shows, if you so desire to do an asynchronous version of the postcard song in A, you're welcome to play along. We're going to be in the key of A. Get this rolling here. And thanks again for being on Postcards, EUGENE Ruffolo. We look forward to hearing that new album and reading that book that's coming my way by Pony Express from New York City. When you're down and you're blue and you don't know what to do, just write a postcard. When you're feeling fine and there's something on your mind, just write a postcard. Don't you know Grandma loves this show? She listens every time. You don't need a reason, you don't need a rhyme to write a postcard. The P.O. Box 12522, just write a postcard. 04098, just write a postcard. To Westbrook, Maine, 'cause Grandma loves this show. Well, thank you, EUGENE. So much for being on the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will see you on Monday.
Thanks, Jenny.